Hello and welcome to Of the People. I am Robert Chernin. Thank you so much for joining us again. There is a new threat to America. That's right. The Constitution is a threat to American democracy. So says CNN. So says two quote unquote scholars from that place of knowledge, Harvard. And if you think I'm making this up, folks, I'm not. So on CNN, scholars warn, quote, that the outdated Constitution has put democracy at risk. Names Stephen Levitsky, Daniel Ziblatt, if I got that right, who are authors of The Tyranny of the Tyranny of the Minority. What these guys don't understand is the exact founding of the Constitution was to make sure that there was not a tyranny of the majority. So it gave the minority or the smaller states rights to check and balance the bigger states. That's the Electoral College, right? That's the U.S. House of Representatives. That's that whole big state, small state deal that they came up with, right? And that's why there is an Electoral College. And by the way, for you scholars at Harvard, we're not a democracy. We're a constitutional republic. At least we used to be, right? And just for your edification, really, our independence wasn't 1776. It was 1787 when the Constitution was written, right? We had the Articles of Confederation initially. They proved to be inoperable in terms of states being able to conduct interstate commerce. It was a very weak federal government, although maybe we should go back to that. So the Constitution requires checks and balances not only within branches, but between branches. And it requires a word that the Democrats don't understand, which is why they don't like the Constitution. And that word is compromise. Right now, the problem is the only people compromising are the Republicans. So we sort of like bringing a knife to a gunfight, right? So, and what they're basically saying is they're advocating for dismantling the Electoral College and reforming the U.S. Senate, which obviously means they want to get rid of the filibuster. And here's the best part. This will, quote, bring us up to speed with our democratic peers and make America a more vibrant democracy. They should re-roll this tape, play it back from the beginning. Folks, we're not a democracy. We're a constitutional republic. At least we were until March of 2020. So next time you want to know the greatest threat to America, turn to CNN because they'll tell you it's the Constitution. You cannot make this stuff up. We'll be right back with the main segment of the show. Hello, and welcome back to Of the People. I am Robert Chernin with my lovely co-host,
Ericka Redic.
Ericka. I don't usually lead off the show and get angry, but I am pissed off, right? I mean, how do you have the temerity, right? See, I mean, look, I understand the Communist News Network, right? CNN, but
yep.
CNN has the temerity to put on these two so-called scholars. By the way, I've published all these articles. Am I a scholar too?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, so I should behave scholarly? I don't think so.
All you have to do is call yourself a scholar, and you're a scholar.
Well, if I call myself like 6'2", does that help?
Yes.
Yeah.
We're now trans height. We're now
I can be whatever height I want.
Yes. Yes.
So wait a minute. So these two knuckleheads basically say that the United States Constitution is a threat to democracy.
Yes, it is. I mean, it is technically a threat to democracy. And we don't want So we don't want a pure democracy. I had to pull out my handy book here, The Indispensable Electoral College by Tara Ross. I actually did a presentation on the Electoral College back in the day. And one of our founding fathers, Alexander Hamilton, in his infinite wisdom said, this is part of a speech. He said, "The ancient democracies in which the people themselves deliberated never possessed one feature of good government. Their very character was tyranny, their figure deformity." So over and over and over again, the founding fathers of this country said that democracy was sucked. And they called it names. They said how terrible it was.
Don't hold back. Tell us what you really think.
And I mean, some of these quotes are like pretty bad.
Well, first of all, you know that Alexander Hamilton was all about a strong federal government, so he wouldn't like a democracy anyway. But your point is taken.
Yeah.
Right?
So they
the
knew
point is that we're not really a democracy because, by the way, that's why there are two houses, right? We have a bicameral legislature. One is supposed to burn hot, and the other is supposed to be the cooling chamber.
Exactly.
That's why the Senate is supposed to be this deliberative body, and the passions that inflame the populace or the people go through the House.
Correct.
Right?
So we have one chamber that is representative of the electorate, in that we have one representative per so many thousand or 100,000 people in any given state. And so you have the voice of the people. You have the voice of the Democratic electorate, right? The whole people. But then, like you said, the Senate, which, part of the reason why they serve longer and things like that is because they're supposed to be the calmer ones who don't react and respond to the mob, to the whims of the people. We go, okay.
But wait a minute. I don't want to get into sort of,
the weeds.
The weeds of operation. I mean, let's go back to CNN, because what CNN clearly meant by airing this.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to sort of, depends on how you spell democracy or your definition of democracy is.
It depends on what your definition of the word is.
Thank you, Bill Clinton. Where's the blue dress? Thank you. But clearly what they're basically arguing for is tyranny of the majority versus tyranny of the minority. And even though you can take them to task that because we're not a democracy, pure and simple, we're a constitutional republic, what they're really arguing is that they don't want to give any credence or any weight or any power to anything other than the majority, and it should be pure majority rule, and therefore the Constitution is outdated. Of course,
correct.
I'm wondering how the Constitution is outdated, because these are the same people that think the Constitution is a living document.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, clearly what they're saying, because I mean, to me, it follows from that's why they don't want to teach civics.
Oh, yeah.
Because if people understood what the Constitution really said, this would be a different discussion. All they're trying to do is bury it. So they've marginalized it. They don't teach it in the public schools anymore.
That's right.
They don't really teach it in college unless, of course, you take a course on the U.S. Constitution, which, by the way, so I went to school in Canada, right? I went to McGill University in Montreal. I had to go to Montreal and select a course on the U.S. Constitution and the American government to learn in college, because I didn't learn it in high school. I went to a public school, how my government is supposed to operate. I had to leave the country to even get that course. And that was way before wokeism took everything over.
It's wild. Yeah, I think that what is so fascinating to me about the conversations about the Constitution, and I think that they know this, but the average American doesn't, because of what you just said, which is that we don't study it. Our Constitution is very liberal. It is set up so that you can be you and I can be me, and we're not supposed to really be able to interfere with each other, except for in circumstances where we are infringing on each other's rights. And so the very people who call themselves liberal are actually fighting to get rid of the document that has allowed for things like same-sex marriage and all of the other progressive ideologies and whatever else that they're doing.
You're arguing facts. They don't care about facts.
No, this is why I'm saying, like, they are arguing for tyranny. And that's why I go, do they understand that they are literally arguing for the tyranny of the minority? We already have
majority.
No, I'm saying minority, because what has happened already is that so few people are actually engaging with their government. We have so few people.
But that's what they want.
We have so few people even voting anymore that we already are being ruled by only like 7 to 10% of the actual population of the United States. It is a very small sect of people who believe in all the nonsense that they're pushing on us, yet they have been able to take over and control the levers of power. They have been able to
So wait a minute.
mobilize people to vote where conservatives don't.
Let me encapsulate this. So what you're really saying is, while they're arguing against the tyranny of the minority in favor of the tyranny of the majority, in reality, they are the tyranny of the majority. It's a minority, but it's just a different minority. It's their minority, 7 to 10%.
Exactly. Yes. So that's what the point of the Constitution was, to avoid the tyranny of the minority or the majority. The whole point was that you shouldn't be able to get a minority of people together to then tell everybody else what to do. And so when you have people talking about how, we're run by an oligarchy, or the corporate, what is it called, Robert, when it's the corporations that are running it?
I don't.
There's a word for it.
Crony capitalism.
Yeah, whatever.
Did you just whatever me?
Yeah, no, I'm saying yes, exactly. Like whatever. There's another word for it, but it's basically like we've allowed this small minority of corporations and corrupt politicians to run our government and to run this country.
Again, so when I was in university, there was a book written by a sociologist named Thomas Dye called "Who's Running America." Now that's got to go back, folks. I am dating myself only because no one else will, right? So so that has to be like 1981.
Okay.
Right? So we're talking about 40 some odd years ago. Even back then, if you trace the corporations and the shells and whatnot, the power was sort of consolidated. That's not the issue. The issue I want to come back to, though, is really when you talk about the Constitution, you can't have it both ways. They want to amend the Constitution, yet they're trying to, let's bring Trump into this, right? They're trying to use the 14th Amendment, Section 3, by the way, to disqualify Donald Trump with charges of that he insurrection, and I forget the other term they were using, but basically, that he was trying to overthrow the government, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And I don't even want to get into the whole January 6th, what we know and what we don't. The point is they're trying to, on the one hand, use the Constitution to disbar their political enemy from running for office.
Yeah.
At the same time, they're trying to do away with the Constitution.
Yeah. Of course.
Right. And forget about the fact that, you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty.
No.
So sedition and insurrection are things that have to be proved. It's sort of like, when you impeach someone, you then have to prove and remove them from office and, right. So
yep.
It's amazing to me that the outrage that I have, though, is we just take it.
Yeah.
And I am surprised. I mean, forget about the guns, but at least we need to hit the streets with pitchforks and farming tools and just so that way they won't feel that threatened, because you know how that works. God forbid you show a gun in public, all of a sudden you're militia, or you're an extreme right wing Christian. Of course, you're extreme right wing Christian.
A threat.
You're a threat. Well, by the way, if you're devoutly Christian, you're a threat to this government.
Definitely threat.
And we've already documented that.
Jesus is very threatening.
So when he was turning the other cheek, right? When he turned the other cheek.
Forgiving 7 times, 70 times.
He was using the back of his hand to smack the guy next to him. I don't know. I mean, it's just, and that's what they're worried about. Actually, they're worried about forces they can't control. Yeah. That's what they're worried about. This is all about control. But so here's the other thing, right? Constitutionally speaking, I don't know if you saw this in the news, but so former Attorney General Ed Meese, who was the Attorney General under Ronald Reagan.
Yeah, I was going to say, wow, that is
He's 91. So again, we're going to stay on this Trump thing with the Constitution.
Okay.
So the thing that still gets me is you have Fani Willis, who is the Attorney General in Georgia.
Yep.
Filing a racketeering lawsuit against a federal officer and sitting officer president, right? And no one has come out to challenge that. It's till Ed Meese. So Ed Meese just filed in district court under Article 6 of the. We're not even getting into the folks. We're not even getting into the amendments. We're getting into the original articles of the Constitution. So this was the first stuff they wrote, not the stuff they wrote afterwards to make sure your rights weren't messed with, right?
You're right.
Article 6 of the Constitution, Section 2 has something called, by the way, they taught me really well at McGill about my own Constitution, just so you know, in Canada. That was the old Canada, not Trudeau's Canada. Article 6, Section 2 is the Supremacy Clause. And the Supremacy Clause basically says that federal laws are supreme and federal, goes through, it's not a lot of words either, right? So he has filed a petition in U.S. District Court, citing that based on Article 6 of the Constitution, that she can't bring a lawsuit against a president at the state level. So this, right? I mean, so it's going to be interesting to see how that plays itself out. Look, it's no different than the 10th Amendment in the sense that the 10th Amendment to the, which is the states' rights amendment, says that any right, it's the inverse, right?
Right.
Article 6, Section 2 says that federal laws are supreme, that you cannot go after, federal, you can't challenge federal laws, and federal laws even reign over state constitutions, right? Specifically stated. Amendment 10 to the Bill of Rights basically says that any right not delegated to the federal government by omission is a states' rights issue. But they're connected, right? So this issue is specifically stated, not even in an amendment, in the original articles. And yet no one until 91-year-old Edwin Meese, former U.S. Attorney General for the United States, brings this up. Now, look, we all know that this is all going to the Supreme Court at some point. I don't know how they're going to rule. I mean, obviously, I can't imagine that they would find that this is constitutional. But it just goes to show you the weaponization. I mean, the Democrats are using any tool possible and mostly the DOJ at this point. I mean, the FBI is used to intimidate and silence. Yeah. But it's the DOJ that's really weaponized. And then you've got these scholars. I'm a scholar. I wrote a book. You might be an author. I'm not sure that makes you a scholar. Of course, if you're from Harvard, maybe it's the same thing, right? That bastion of conservatism.
Well, I think they do this a lot. So whether whether it's at the state level or at the federal level, whether it's Joe Biden with his executive orders, they will do things that they know are unconstitutional or illegal and get away with it for as long as they can get away with it until it makes its way through the courts. Joe Biden literally said about the COVID stuff, the vaccine mandates, the student loan forgiveness. He said in some circumstances out loud that he knew that it was illegal and that he didn't have the authority to do it, but that it would take years or months to go through the court system. And in the meantime, we would be able to do blah, 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 blah.
The damage is done. So
exactly.
So much for Lady Justice being blind and fast.
Well, right? And I think by
the way, one of your other rights is that you have the right to a speedy trial.
Oh God. Yeah, no, not anymore. They don't care. And I think it speaks to something that you have said before. And I think we were talking about it. Was it just last week about how they are intentionally trying to degrade the rule of law and the courts in the eyes of the people? So if the courts and laws are delegitimized, then what do we have left?
And you point well taken. So last week when we were talking about the New Mexico gun grab, it was forcing public officials to come out and say, we're not going to listen to those laws or enforce those laws, which really perpetuates the breakdown of rule of law anyways, regardless, even though you and I both, from an emotional and moral standpoint, supported that. So we're getting the high sign to go to break, but I want to just posit one more thing.
Fast.
Isn't that fast? Yeah. Are we having fun yet?
Yeah.
I'm having fun.
You know, I love talking about the Constitution.
I know.
I would totally marry the Constitution.
On break, you know what? I'm wondering how the conjugal part of that would work, but we'll talk about that at some other time. But here's one way I would like to utilize, not use, but utilize the Constitution. So let's now go to the First Amendment, right?
Okay.
Congress shall make no law that abridges or establishes religion. It's called the Establishment Clause.
Right.
From our perspective, wokeism is a religion. Is a religion. I think we should try to find someone to look for a legal basis to challenge wokeism, utilizing the Establishment Clause in the Constitution, because the federal government either directly, possibly directly, but certainly indirectly, is establishing a state religion. And I'm going to leave it on that thought because we got to go to break. But wokeism is a religion, and if they're using the Constitution, then so should we.
Amen.
Folks, you are listening to Of the People with Robert Chernin and the lovely
Ericka Redic.
We got to go make some money because unlike the Marxists and communists that are, running most of the institutions, we like money. We have to go make some money. We'll be right back.
Hey everybody, Ericka Redic, the other half of the People. Come check me out over on Generally Irritable. That's where you'll find me on all the socials. I got Ericka Redic on Twitter. We're not just covering news and politics, but we also cover culture and how those things relate to one another. So come check it out. You can also go to generallyirritable.com and learn more about me and the show.